Hi everyone. So as I talked about in our last video, I wanted to focus in on really planning out the rest of my paintings that I'm going to be doing. I think I'm going to be doing around 9 or 10 more. Right now, if you've been following along with my pictures, you know that I have finished 11 paintings. So I've already, as you can see, kind of storyboarded out some of them. So I wanted to kind of talk to you about my process that I go through, so you can kind of get a behind the scenes look at how I plan out some of these paintings. And this isn't typically what I normally do when I'm starting a painting, just a studio painting, but I have been doing this for this story because with something this big, I feel like I need to really plan out exactly what's going to be happening in this story. So I have, as you know, the last illustration that I did, our hiker was running down the hill, being hailed on, being rained on, and there was a little bear hiding out in the rocks. So this next one, I have our hiker down to the bottom. As you saw in the other illustrations, there was a lake at the bottom. So I wanted to include that kind of larger. And then because each of my illustrations has an animal element to it, I wanted to, for this particular illustration, have a little squirrel in the boat. And I thought maybe he could use the hiker's hat as kind of a boat to paddle along. And then I was thinking about maybe having either a deer or a moose, some sort of animal kind of hiding out in the trees over there watching. And then for the rain, it's starting to lighten up. It's still going to be sprinkling a little bit, but it's not going to be hailing on him anymore. So it's just going to be a few light drops. So you can kind of see how I sketch things out. I'm careful when I do my thumbnail sketches not to put too much detail in. I mainly am just looking for my layout that I'm wanting in the picture. So even in this one right here, my hiker is a little big for my thumbnail box that I have in there. And my box is only about 2 inches by like 1.5 inches. So they're very small sketches on here, just to kind of play with the layout and play with the different characters that I want in there. Okay, moving along. The next illustration, I was thinking he'd spend a little more time at the lake. I was also, I'll scoot this over so you can see, I'm playing with the idea, thinking about the illustration book and how it would have a centerfold to it. I'm playing with the idea of maybe, and right now I don't have it like that, but maybe even having one large illustration in there and kind of continuing this story by finishing the lake there. So that's one thought I had. So I kept my sketches like this just in case. But if I don't decide to do that, then what I have going on here is I have our hiker sitting on the rock and he's doing a little fishing. I have his backpack over here and then his rain jackets kind of be sitting on a tree or something like that to dry. And then while he's fishing over here, I'm gonna have his little friend, the squirrel, over here talking to a fish in the lake here. So that's kind of what I'm thinking for that one. Moving on, I have our hiker has moved on to a meadow area, still kind of in this valley after going down that rocky hill. And there's going to be all sorts of deer or elk, some kind of game animal out here. And he's going to take out his camera that we actually saw in the third illustration that I did. And he's going to be working on taking some pictures of the elk. And then the bottom here, I have the squirrel. And I was thinking the squirrel might, and I might move him over, but he might be coming up holding up some wildflowers for the deer to look at or something like that. And then in this one, I was thinking about playing with a jackalope in there, which would be getting a little more whimsical. than the rest of the illustration. So I haven't quite decided if I'm going to do that or not, but I thought it might be fun to have a jackalope in there, kind of sitting on the rock watching as the hiker walks away, oblivious to the jackalope. So I have finished 4 sketches on here. I thought that maybe you could join me for a couple of my sketches. So this one right here, I was thinking he was in the meadow for the last couple pictures. There were a couple rocks in there. So I was thinking here I might have a hill that is completely covered in wildflowers. And I would have this trail kind of cutting through and maybe even cutting around it a little bit. So I have the flowers out here, and you can see I'm not really putting a lot of detail in there. It's mostly just scribbles, just to kind of figure out where things are gonna be in there, and even I'd probably put in some grass in here too. And then our hiker is gonna be over here this time. And he is actually gonna be in his normal clothes again, hat and all, because he is going to be moving on down the trail. He's finally dry, his clothes are put away in his backpack again. And I'm actually gonna have him kind of turned facing this direction, I think, as he's walking. So I have our hiker here on the trail, walking along. I'm probably gonna start to have some scattered clouds in here because the storm is finally breaking up. And we'll have the sun popping out again maybe. And he is starting to go up over this hill. Now for the animals, there are a lot of different things I could do. And a lot depends on kind of my background here. So we have a meadow with a lot of different flowers in it. What I might do for this one, I might bring back a few butterflies. Maybe have them sitting on the flower. And maybe I'll even have a couple butterflies in there. Now last time we had a moose with the butterflies. This time, I'm gonna have to think about it to see what I wanna do. So you can see how it starts to come together, and maybe even I just want a bunch of butterflies. Maybe I'll have some butterflies flying in the sky too. So it could be like a field of butterflies and wildflowers. And then we're gonna have our little squirrel buddy up here. And he is gonna be hitching a ride on the pack this time, kind of looking as I think the butterflies fly overhead. So that is how I put together one of my sketches. I know in my head eventually I want to do a beaver pond, so I'm gonna make that one of them. I don't think he's quite gotten to the beaver pond yet. I think he may head towards the beginnings of a stream, but I haven't quite figured that out yet. So as you can see, I'm getting close. I do know that this last one right here is going to be, so this would be my 9th box, which if I am doing 20 total, would be my last sketch where he would be back at the parking lot. So what I may do for this last one is actually work backwards and start with this last sketch at the parking lot and then kind of fill in as we go. So we'll see what happens. As happened with the first set of 10, I ended up adding another one in there. So that can definitely happen. I just like to have these kind of markers kind of so that I know where the story's going, where we're headed next. Alright, my 9 illustrations are officially planned out. I may add a few illustrations in there where there might be some gaps in the story, like the hiker going through the meadow, and then the hiker kind of at this little saddle area right here, and then going to the beaver pond. So there might be another illustration somewhere in there. And then we'll be wrapping up with him heading back towards where the trailhead is. And then my last illustration that I'll need to do that I kind of have planned out in my head is the cover illustration. So I don't have animals in all of these illustrations yet. I do have an eagle in this one. I was thinking that'd be kind of cool. But if you have any ideas for animals that you haven't seen yet that you'd like to see, let me know. Thanks for tuning in.